Do we try to massage comments to the point that it does not reflect our community at all? It only reflects the best of us, and there's an argument for that. Do we not have any kind of dialogue, knowing that there are very, very rabid belief systems out there that are in complete opposition with what we think personally is mainstream? So is our goal to be reflective of society? And that's really what in all conversations I've had about comments has been, we want to be reflective of society and spawn a dialogue. What we don't want to do is get tagged again, as media always does, as elitist or self-serving or having a political bent or going after a specific agenda by only allowing comments that agree with us.
You can see a lot of editorials where they do let an outlandish comment go just so they can show that they're not being biased. And where they know it's the most ridiculous thing they've ever seen in their life. And me as a reader, I'm reading it and saying, oh, why would they let that comment go through out of all the comments they could have shown? Right. So they're purposely trying to be fair about it.
If we really believe that the vitriolic and hateful comments that we see are not really representative of our community, then this silent majority has a responsibility to stand up and say, I don't want this on my newspaper website, and I'm going to flag it to remove it. And I do flag comments when I actually, feeling strong, and I'm going to read these comments today and see what happens to my stomach. If I see something I don't like, I will flag it. And usually, it does get removed.
I think there's two things you could do. Every blogger should identify themselves with their name and email site, just like you do a letter to the editor. And on other occasions, the comments need to be shut down.
Have a separate tab for comments, so they're not thrown in your face when you get to the bottom of an article, whether you want to read them or not. As an editor of mine used to say, some of this stuff subtracts from the sum of human knowledge. The second thing is that the New York Times, I think, is a good example of a paper that doesn't allow comments on every article. You pick them. They allow them on their opinion pieces, they allow them on some news stories, but there are certain articles where they sort of just decide they don't want comments on that article, and they don't have it. That's called editing, by the way.
And if you take articles that aren't allowed to be commented on, the first comment, either in another article, is, why did you censor that article? Why didn't you allow comments? So by not allowing comments, you'll be censoring.
If it's wide open and people can post, everything that's on there is the responsibility of the poster. If I have to look at it and let it go up, then I am by extension saying that everything that went up is okay with me. And it's certainly a liability issue, but even beyond that, I'm just not comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable saying in advance, this is the kind of discussion that I want to guide, and essentially engineering that discussion from the ground up.
The law also recognizes a significant difference depending on what you think this device is that you've attached to your newspaper, and that is that if it is if you are an interactive service provider that simply creates the opportunity for people to put things on the web and to publish it that way, then you are not responsible for the content under federal law. Whereas if you edit it, you do become responsible for it. You become the publisher if you take it and edit it. So some of the earlier comments about what can we do and how much can you edit it, the legal nature of the post changes if you take it and edit it.
The statement that anonymity would eliminate 98% of the garbage, it would also eliminate 98% of the good stuff. If you only allow people to post things where they are identifiable and immediately and directly accountable for those statements, they're only going to post statements that fit within a neat and tidy viewpoint of what is socially acceptable to say. There are a lot of opinions out there that don't fit within that definition, and I think it's important that we hear them.
I'm not asking them to police, because we all have a voice. Nobody's ever going to tell me what I don't believe or what I'm going to believe, and I don't think anybody in here does. And I can deal with that. That's not the problem. The problem is, how do you deal with the few
that get down there and get downright ugly and hateful and cruel.
What comes with that responsibility of putting the comments out there, if managing them better, and I'm not even saying editing each comment or pre-approving them, but just being a lot more on them, is that something that's an option if it has a chilling effect? 50,000 comments to 5,000, but they're 5,000 good, interesting comments. Does that change the game? Does that, are those 5,000, is that an improvement? Is that addition by subtraction?
How deep do you want to wade into the swamp?
That's the problem.
You'll eventually drown. And I don't know, maybe I have more of a laissez-faire attitude, but I'm not sure I see a problem.
Is there any way that you can recruit citizen moderators, if you will, for people like, you probably have a lot of people that regularly report bad comments that you can tell from the kind of things they're reporting that they're level-headed, even-handed, whatever. Could you maybe recruit some of those people to help you?
It would be good if the paper could encourage flagging more. I think that there is strength in numbers if you encourage it. I mean, Wikipedia is quite good at that and gets people to correct things and add things all the time. And there's certainly no shortage of people looking at the comments.
Our suggest removal link that you have where people can report abusive comments, in ours, if we have a threshold set so that if X number of people flag this comment as abusive, then it automatically goes away. Nobody has to look at it or make a decision.
People put things that are really, really hard to live with. And, for a while I sort of, lighted on the explanation that, well, you know what, people can write anything on there that they can write on the bathroom wall at Pizza Hut, which is true, but, the reality is that the bathroom wall at Pizza Hut doesn't say WBIR straight from the heart across the top of it. Or if it does, I'd scratch it out, I guess. But, but that is a reality. To some degree, whether we created it or not, and whether we really should have ultimate editorial responsibility or even can, there is an association in people's minds, and that is a really intense struggle for those of us who have to make the decision whether or not to hit that delete button.
I'm not sure that the blog belongs to News Sentinel. It's not their product, and it's not identified. You see the articles and you see the editorials, that's the News Sentinel. But when you go down into the blogs, that's outside of the boundary, it's outside of the territory.
And it's their comments that say, please be respectful and nice and courteous or whatever, don't be rude or curse or whatever. That's the News Sentinel doing that.
The content is not the News Sentinel.
Even if, legally and technically those comments belong to the poster, it still lends a certain flavor to the News Sentinel. And do you want your newspaper to have that image, that brand?
I think in a way I have changed my position. I want to see what the community is, and I prefer to see it in the good and the bad.
There needs to be a way to enforce the comments. I mean, just the bad and the ugly, not just because they have a different opinion. I think the opinions need to be there. That's what the forum is about, for everybody to express what they feel. But anytime there's something that's wrong or hateful, whether the facts are wrong or it's evil, it needs to be a way to stop that.
So do we need to hire a comment czar where we have one person whose sole responsibility is that? No. As we look at it, I think a lot of what we can do about this on a technical level is very, very doable. What we can't do on a media level is change the true reflection of our community. And that is a really hard thing to swallow. But we also need to really rethink what the line is as far as objectivity for our journalists so that they can actually engage with commenters who are saying things that are patently false or patently hateful that are impertinent to the story.
We enabled a conversation, but we chose never to participate in it. And one observation I will have about our comments are that we have much fewer problems on our blogs than we do on our news stories. And I think part of it is that on our blogs, the bloggers, and there's sometimes the same reporters that don't comment on news stories, but in their blogs, they do respond to commenters. And so then the discussion is sort of automatically elevated. And in news stories, you know, we haven't ever put out a memo that says don't do it, but we certainly haven't encouraged anybody to go in there, and we've seen that as fraught with danger.
If comments could rise to the kind of dialogue we had here at this table tonight, that would be beautiful, right? I mean, that really is the end game.